For the people now, well, you mentioned the Pan-European strike, the first one in Europe, and it ain't finished. It's just the beginning, in my view, if we don't change the course of action. That is, for the first time, in 23 different European countries, you had a Pan-European strike. You know, people taking to the street to demonstrate, to oppose austerity policies. So the people are not for austerity. And there were two general strikes in Spain and Portugal. Fourth question, does austerity really work? Here you have to be very humble. I'm not an economist, but I can read economic stuff in the specialized press and books and articles, and I will, just for the sake of the argument, use or refer to two very well-known economics Nobel Prizes that shows the importance, and they're very well known by the public. Joseph Stiglitz, this is what he was writing on his blog last August. I quote, "No large economy has ever recovered from a downturn as a result of austerity." Now, it is a certain recipe for exacerbating the recession and inflicting unnecessary pain on the economy. Any additional spending should address the longer-term problems, i.e. inequality and industrial restructuring, and target the neediest in society who, because of the downturn, are suffering the most. A more progressive tax structure, that is, higher taxes at the top, lower taxes at the bottom, would stimulate the economy. Taxing the excessive speculation that goes on in the financial sector would also be a good thing. Paul Krugman, also Nobel Prize, writes in the New York Times, very mainstream people. They're not anti-capitalist, die-hard communists, very mainstream people. This is the advice he was giving to George Osborne last August as well. Do the opposite of what you've been doing for the last 2 years. This is a time for the UK government to be borrowing and spending. If everyone tries to slash spending at the same time, that's a recipe for what you've got, a depressed economy. I don't have much time left, but I'd like really to give you a few figures about the state of affairs when austerity policy, the shock therapy, is applied to one country in depression, i.e. Greece, of course. But of course, you could extrapolate, and the Portuguese situation is not much better already. So the case for Greece is really mind-blowing. The IMF EU austerity measures have reduced Greece from a semi-developed to an underdeveloped economy. That in a space of 4 years. Given that under austerity in the past 2 years, GDP declined by an astonishing 13%, and it is expected to drop an additional 5 to 8% by the end of this year. As a result of austerity, Greece has had an unemployment rate at over 25% in January 2012, that is double of what it was in 2008. Poverty today affects 1/3 of the population in Greece, plus 10% of what it was in 2008. Wages and social security benefits have dropped by 40%. And living standards have dropped by 50%. It's hard to imagine if you're not out of it, but this is absolutely mind-blowing. Public debt, very interesting. Does it do at least anything good to the public debt? No, it's the opposite. Public debt has risen from 120% of GDP before the IMF EU austerity to 160% today, and is expected to rise at 192% by 2014. So an absolute disaster. Small businesses, which employ the vast majority of Greek people. So small businesses are closing at a rate of 5,000 per month this year, on top of roughly 100,000 small businesses employing 250,000 people going bankrupt since the beginning of austerity. The tax burden, yes, taxes collected in a better way than before, but who pays the taxes? The neediest, those who have less money, the middle classes and the poor. There's still lots of tax evasion. You probably heard about the story of the Greek journalist who wanted to publish a list of tax evaders, millionaires who haven't declared this tax and put their money abroad. Of course, nothing was done against them. Final figure, of the 160 billion euros in new loans given to Greece, in addition to the previous 160 billion euros already given, roughly 80% goes back to creditors to service past debts, 15% goes to Greek banks, and 5% goes to pay existing government obligation. Just 5%. There isn't €1 of those 320 billion in bailout going for economic development or social progress. Not one, zero. To top it all, I'm a political scientist and I will finish there. Greece has an openly pro-Nazi party now in parliament. Golden Dawn, whose members freely beat up foreigners in the streets of Athens. They seem to be in collusion with elements of the Greek police. In May 2009, Golden Dawn received 0.46% of the total of the votes at the EU election, so kind of minor election, so very, very, very insignificant score. In the last parliamentary election of June 2012, that party received 6.9% of the vote and has now 18 MPs in parliament. So of course, we know that this is really exactly what happened in France with the rise of National Front. Austerity policies were being also implemented in the 1980s by the socialist government, and you had suddenly out of the blue the rise of the far right, except that here it is an openly pro-Nazi right. It's even nastier than the National Front. And of course, this is of course one of the byproducts, so to speak, of austerity. I had a point to make about Germany and the role of Germany, but I'll probably have a discussion later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.